actual registration? Or did you? You did okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you want to check those, I got it in.
Yeah.
Well,
I got an email.
Got an
I'm pretty sure I
email.
paid.
Yeah.
Good enough, right?
that's the main thing.
That sounds like
No,
what I got.
I just wondered after, this is our second year doing it, and after you muddle through it the first year,
Yeah,
it
it's-
felt a little more,
The other part was the forms, trying to figure out what form. to use.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
when there's the physical, but that was already down there, and the freshman
Yeah.
demo exam. Okay,
yeah.
just making sure we got everything.
It's 6 o'clock, we'll call our meeting to order. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda for tonight's meeting? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda's approved. First item on the agenda is approval of consent items. Anybody have any questions or comments on any of those?
Okay, on the prepaids, all the Colfax Mingo.
Yeah. Nobody just walk you through it.
Well, not really walk me through it, I'm just wondering, so are we talking next year, I mean,
Oh.
right, but is any of that gonna change? I mean, I think we kind of talked, maybe
I anticipate the curriculum going down,
okay,
because,
Really?
well, she's a first year, right?
yeah,
She does have a master's, but
Well, she has a doctorate.
she has a doctorate.
right, that's
So,
what I thought.
but she'll be a first year, so I think there will be some, I think, in there. I mean, that's their contract, so.
Right.
So we don't have a choice, but I assume that it will go down.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe, I'd hate to say it out loud because I don't remember exactly how much the contract was. And I don't remember how much Josh's was. So I'd hate to say it, have it be correct.
Well, our half for Josh, right there, is $49,000. Right. And so you're looking at, 100,000.
Is that with salary benefits and stuff? So
salary
it would be,
FICA
it'd be less than that.
Okay, that was.
And it'll be less anyway because Josh was 50-50 and Dr. Anderson is 2 days with us, 3 days with them. So it's a little less.
And then the new counselor, what was she compared to?
Right, that was the other thing.
Was that the other one?
Yeah,
So remember Amanda, where she came in at, so we were at 70,000 for her. Nope. Yeah, that's a total. Do you remember what the new counselor was? Okay. But Amanda she was not a first year.
Right.
So, do you know, is the new counselor first year?
I've never even met the new counselor. Oh, they interviewed over there.
Okay.
So, Jason, or Mr. Aker, and I think maybe Mr. Hasselbrink went over and interviewed with Colfax Mango principals when they did that.
So,
but is the contract for the new one with us or no, for the
No,
counselor?
she'd be with them.
Oh, she's with them
she's
too?
with them.
Oh,
Well, we have the one full-time, and Amanda, we
Right.
brought her full-time, so she'll be
Right.
with us now.
right,
But we're still,
We're still, the
We're
Amanda's
still-
old position, that
Uh-huh.
halftime position, they still hold the contract for that one. So this new, it's kind of confusing because the new one is also named Mrs. Hoffman. So we have
Oh.
literally 3 Mrs. Hoffmans now, and 2 of our counselors. So Amanda Hoffman is now a full-time Baxter employee. It's Gabrielle Hoffman is a part-time with us employee and part-time with Colfax Mango, but Colfax Mango holds her contract.
okay. And so, with those new people come new numbers, and so then we'll have 28 Es that we'll have to amend
Right.
or reshare with you as soon
Right.
as she gives those to us.
sure.
Is the full-time again, is that elementary or?
She's, I believe, gonna do K-8. but mostly elementary, but she's gonna take over some of the middle school, to kind of lighten Travis's load. And
Okay.
the two of them are gonna work together on some
Okay.
of middle school stuff.
And then the PC partner bill, is part of that, there's two. I mean, they're the same day, but there's one, are they for two different buildings? I mean, is one for across?
The one is
way?
like $300.
Yeah.
No, one's for internet and one's for phone. Yeah, so the phone is what is the 1,000.
There is like, yeah, a huge difference.
The other one's just strictly internet
Oh,
or
okay.
internet access.
Can't believe what
We do participate in E-rate, and if you remember years back, it used to come directly on the bill. The offset was directly on the bill. That doesn't happen anymore. Now we pay full price for the bills, and then the government puts the discount in our account whenever they decide to do that.
there's something.
Yeah, so on page 3, you'll see where it says Greenbelt Technology E-rate filing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought there was
Yeah.
something on there for you, right?
So Deb used to do that as part of her job. And then she decided she didn't want to do it no more. And so we handed it off to Greg, actually Eric, and then Greg, because they're technology. And it's really, the E-rate is really more geared towards your technology. And what E-rate is depending on what types of setups you have, you get discounts according to firewalls or, your mobility or, your security. And so Deb had no clue what those were. So we handed off to our technology. Well, so then Greg decided he didn't really feel
It was
comfortable doing
Kind
it
of over
either.
his head, so, some of it was, he knew, there was a lot of things we were missing out on just because we weren't aware. So this place, that's all they do, is E-rate for schools. And so with the amount of money he saves us, it more than pays the fee that we pay him. We more than get it back just in the things that he files that we didn't even know about.
Or we anticipate that. We haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet, but that's what we
That's what
think.
we're hoping, that's what they sold us on anyway.
Yep.
That was another thing, I was just kind of interested, if you could maybe somehow, sometime, just give us a listing of, because there's so many things in here, all internet, I mean, obviously, we know about JMC, but there's the software unlimited, I mean, there's just all these, and for privacy, and there's just so many licensing, so many different bills, I mean, and they're expensive, obviously.
Yep.
But just out of
You want a
curiosity.
list of what they
Yeah.
do and
Yeah,
how much
maybe
they
just
are?
like, yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So we have different. I mean, there's several.
Yeah, there's several at the student level, then there's several at the administration level, and then there's some at the district level.
Right.
And so, yeah.
I just didn't know, is there any way that we can pay part of that from, no. Okay. Just trying to, sorry.
There is some licensing when it's at the student level, and I think it was either in this month's or in last month's, that I paid that out a couple.
Yeah, there's none here because all of these, I didn't see any of these were paid out of Pebble.
No, these, okay,
Right.
you didn't see anything
No.
paid, okay, so then must have been last month. It's like licensing that goes along with, like, when we buy new Chromebooks, they now
Right.
allow that stuff that really
Well, that's what I'm
already comes
asking,
on it,
because
yes.
we're doing a lot of the actual equipment from there, could we not?
If it's student
Yeah.
based, so yes, we already are.
Okay.
On the pre-page at the bottom of page 3, that Euro restorative or what?
Yep.
What's that?
That's,
That's that,
Remember?
we have that student that is,
Oh, okay,
goes to school in Illinois.
okay.
and lives there. Because they are a resident of our district. It's our job to pay first.
Bills also.
Yeah, we probably, because of the timing of it, we probably something creating get them paid before June 30.
Is that a monthly or do we pay it like quarterly or something?
Well, they bill us monthly, but we don't get them on a monthly basis.
Oh,
Sometimes they're a little behind and
gotcha.
I don't know if it's them or, I mean, we have all kinds of troubles with our mail, so it could be our mail, I don't know, but yeah. We may get two right back to back, back to back, and then not hear anything from them for a while. And with this being year end, we were trying to get June in with June before, because if you wait till after June, then you do have, you have to do accounting for it, accounts payable, things like that. So we're trying to get all the bills paid for June that we have.
And then on story construction, the design of the complex.
That was, the fee for them to just do our master planning. I
Sure.
think we'd approved up to 10, I don't remember exactly what we had approved up to, but, they came in under what we approved.
I think that was our second bill, right? That we paid for it.
But it was for the master planning of the, out of the complex.
On the monthly, kind of end of year deal.
Yep, so
A lot of
you
stuff
probably need
off to
some,
the side.
a lot of explanation on that one.
It's like, well,
So you want to do it, Michael? Or do you
Well,
want
I
me to
mean,
do it?
you sure can, it's your good news, like you're.
Well, I don't know if it's good news, but let me get there. Yeah, so I had to put all those numbers there just to help myself. So just turn those in. So, yes, the normal numbers that we look at, you'll see that we were actually over budget by just less than 11%, which is about $500,000 over budget. But we almost have to take last year's into consideration because we basically shut down the school at the beginning of March. And you remember we were well under budget last year, right? So you almost have to take them hand in hand. And so by doing that, in theory, we should have been over budget by $600,000, but we weren't. We were over budget $500,000. So in theory, we saved $100,000. See what I'm saying? And that 100,000 attributes to the salary that we reduced last year. Okay?
Go ahead.
So a lot of the reason why we're over budget also is because we had the insurance claim from the derecho, and then we had the, obviously COVID-19. So while we're over budget, $500,000, we brought in that much money that was dedicated to those funds. So we didn't spend district money that we already had. Those funds were extra that we just hadn't planned on in the budget. If I knew that those things were going to happen, we would have put it in the budget and we would have been right on budget. You see what I'm saying? So we've collected at the end of June, just under 115,000 for COVID. And for our insurance claim, just under $300,000. And so there's more of that to come. This is just the breaking off point as of June, so.
For the insurance claim.
For the insurance claim and also COVID, we still have more money coming for
So our
COVID.
expenses were higher, but really our
revenue was higher as
too
well
from
to
insurance claim and COVID.
Yes.
so.
So if you really
Yeah.
kind of
So
like,
if you
just
took
take
those
the
out of
absolute
it.
value of it, we're about 100,000 under
Yes,
of what we were.
yes, yes.
So it's the savings of the salary reductions we did last year, totaled up to about $100,000.
So I think even going into next year, because we still have COVID monies coming in, which is gonna raise our expenditures again, even though I do now know what that's going to be, I can predict that in our line item budget. So it'll be a little better when we get to the end and it won't be so shocking. But I still believe that we're gonna have to take all 3 years into consideration when we get to the end of next year. I think September of '23 is the last that we have to spend the COVID money. So I would anticipate we'll have it all gone by June 30 of this next year. Unless they come out with something new, and I mean,
There's
we've
no,
got the Delta virus going on now, so.
That's very.
Variant, sorry.
The elementary money for being on the DE's list, we don't get that as revenue anymore, right?
Yes.
That's it. We do.
Yes, so we
I've
have,
had that for 3 years, so
Is this
this.
21, 22 the last of it?
21, 22, I believe,
Yeah, I
is the
think it
last
should
of
be.
it.
Mhm.
That again, the revenue side of it doesn't show up, but the additional expenses do,
Right,
that we hadn't had.
right. But in theory, I knew that was coming, so I would have anticipated that a little bit. The whole biggest issue was really us shutting down in March,
in the duration.
and then that, and the derecho. I mean, COVID and the derecho really did it, and it's probably gonna, we're still working on both of them, so I still look for that to affect us this next year.
Any other questions or comments on the consent items? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent items? I have a motion, do we have a second? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent items are approved. Look like we have any correspondence. So then the next item on our agenda is public forum. So, Sue, would you like to go first?
Does not matter to me, as I tell you each time when someone else is here, but if you would like me to go first and get it out of the way, I would be happy to
That'd
do
be
that
fine.
for you. Okay. My reason for sending the same charts that I sent the previous month, the data comes from NAEP only through 2019. You know, these national assessments only given every other year, and we won't get this year's until towards the end of the year, so much later into the year, and we already are anticipating that they're going to show some reaction, talk about COVID to the circumstances at the time. So that part is not a part of this data. And my reason for sending them a second time, along with the link so you can check out yourself that this data does come directly from NAEP, is to point out the fact that up through 2019, while Iowa's average might have been hanging in there, it was dropping in rankings to other states, which can be problematic. Now, not only does Tom Dieter, one of the mathematicians at the DE, agree with the data, he's very much aware of it, but I just learned within the last couple of days that the director and, was it Lebo? Yeah. Is also aware of it, as are some other people, and they're not disputing it. They agree something needs to be done with this. And yes, as you were discussing the book earlier, there are a lot more support systems that should be put in place to be helpful. I would not argue with that in the least. But the other new item coming about was the training now being offered at the University of Iowa for mental health. And my reason for wanting to mention that at this time is because of the past year, the number of conversations covering a variety of groups, trying to improve understanding of why you're seeing behaviors. In other words, get rid of the stereotypes. Because for decades, training for educators has included some embedded stereotypes of certain groups, which has lowered expectations in ways. And I'm hoping that it might be possible to use this training in ways to help look at individuals within these groups a little differently, and as perfectly capable with the capacity to learn with the proper support systems in place that do not have to all come from the schools. As you know, with all the monthly things I was sending to the board meetings last year when we couldn't be here, that was the gist of them, is that expanded support systems would be extremely good to help this. And yes, I do recognize that educators are not one united group on all these issues. You've got a lot of division, so some will see it and be able to respond to it and some will not. So the most I could hope for is within the building here, you know, this school district. Since you seem to be on track, am I right without, you know, I missed quite a few of the meetings, but I think they're on track with new types of internal organizations and support systems to improve communications, to help find ways to help these students that are needing additional support. So I don't have any reason, correct, to think that that's going to go away. Aren't they going to stay there to help make up for this past year? Okay, so that was all I wanted to point out to if you have a chance to use the data. And the reason I included the link is so others could check out the NAEP website to see the rankings of the states for the individual, you know, 4th grade math and reading, 8th grade math and reading, and then you get up to like science and stuff in the higher grades, to see that while the average may compare to the national average, the state average might, the rankings are changing as some other states are figuring out. They were, until this past year, able to make some advances. So I was kind of hoping maybe that would be possible, at least here if you have a chance to discuss it. And I wanted you to know that if you hadn't seen it yet, yes, the head of the department and others there are aware of this. So you might find some additional support in different ways through that. It's the only reason for sending it 2 months in a row to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for public forum?
We're just here to listen. Okay.
Okay. Okay, we'll move into our business items. First item, there's building project update. I think there's, I guess, the
Later on
floor
down.
is in
Yeah,
out there now,
they've got
so.
the floor in, they're gonna be waxing it soon, they've got the chairs replaced in the science lab. There was a little bit, like, there's little things, some chairs in the FCS room and the classrooms, the wheels weren't rolling right, so we're still like working with workspace on that, just little things. But
We do have an outstanding bill or so, that's why I keep it on there. We had withheld some money from Ben Monin until the bulb light is working correctly.
Is it working correctly?
I saw it on one night.
Yeah, so
It's on, but not completely, like there's a part of it that's.
Okay, the next item then under business items is, it's an annual routine item that we have to state in our minutes, that we're a 5-member board and who the membership on the board is, so. As far as action, we need to have somebody make a motion to approve the continuation of a 5-member board, which currently consists of myself as president, Corey Robinson, Colette Conkle, Deb Meyer, and Kim Tickey.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. It's approved that we'll continue with the 5-member board. Next item is COVID-19 policy updates, which we've kind of kept that on. If there's anything new to add.
yeah, I mean, not really, haven't changed anything since our meeting in May or June, when the governor changed things, we haven't changed anything since then.
And it'd be safe to assume unless the governor changes things again, that we're gonna continue as we have.
Yeah, that's our plan.
Okay.
I'll talk a little more about that down just a
All
little
right.
later.
Okay, the next item is an out-of-state baseball trip.
The baseball team is gonna go down and see the Kansas City Royals next week. They just, since it's an out-of-state trip, they just need board approval to go. And I believe, of the coaches is gonna drive.
Doug Clement.
Doug Clement is gonna drive the bus.
We have a motion to approve the out-of-state baseball trip.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved to approve the out-of-state baseball trip. The next item is annual review of board policies. 400s to the 600s this time.
And so if you click on that link, I tried to kind of do a Cliff Notes version of it. There's a handful of policies that are just brand new and are mandatory, so we have to include those, like the employee expression one and like the superintendent evaluation one. The only thing that's changed there is that the leadership standards have changed. There used to be 6 and now there's 10. And so that part has changed, and then the same for the principals, they use those same standards, so that changes the policy, because in our old policy actually had the 6 standards listed, so we have to change that. And then student expression is another mandatory one. And then on the student expression one, if you see where it's highlighted in yellow, the students are actually, they do a school newspaper as part of their curriculum, so you have to pick which one like which policy you're gonna implement. The top one, which is if it's not a class sponsored, but ours is a class sponsored one. And then there's some guidance that goes along with it. These are all from the IASB's policy primer, so like we just use theirs and then you substitute in your school district, and their lawyers go through it to make sure that they've updated it to fit with the new codes. So another one is the graduation requirements. They've changed that policy. So students who are serving as a legislative page can get half credit of social studies for the semester that they're working at the State House, which makes a lot of sense. And then there's another one that they can, for their PE credit, they can use, they can get waived from PE, and also people who are in the military, like students who are in the reserves or the military, can get PE credit for that. And then the last one is a new one that is a flag. Like if there's, you're required to say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and any classroom where the pledge is being said, there needs to be an American flag. So we've already got the flags, Pam's getting them put up, and but that's a new mandatory policy also. So I just tried to update the ones that were the 400s and 600s, but you guys can sure just look through these. This is just the first reading, and I tried to make sure we included all the new mandatory ones that just came out on July 1st.
This is a nice summary.
Yeah, thanks for reading.
Under that graduation requirements, it has like English and science and that. In that is that we put in our own, what we have for credits that we need.
So I probably
Required.
didn't copy it right out.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
it's just,
yeah.
just, I
Because
would
I'm
highlight
sure
it.
our existing policy has those in.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's-
So we're
we'll
just
just
adding
amend
in
our
our new
policy.
one
Yep.
to have the new language
Yep.
added in there.
So the credits will stay the same, it's just the language changed about
Right, like if they happen to be a set page,
page.
then.
Have any questions or comments on those? Again, this is the first reading. Okay, we'll move on to our return to learn plan.
So if you click on that link, the Baxter Return to Learn Plan, it's gonna look very similar to last year's, but here's the reason why. The state of Iowa was very far ahead. I mean, there's a lot of states that are just figuring out now how they're gonna really reopen next year. So as part of the ESSER 3 requirements, we have to have a return to learn plan, and there's different parts that have to be in it. So, but Iowa, last year, before we could even start school, had to have a return to learn plan. So the only thing I've modified in our plan from last year is just that when we said it was masks will be required, it's now masks will not be required, they'll be optional. And then if you look below that, I've linked in the new ESSER 3 requirements. And there's gonna be a plan, there's gonna be a spot on the Department of Ed's website that we have to get on, but it doesn't open until August 1st. And between August 1st and I think it's August 20th, it'll be open for us to input our information. But I can't even do it until August 1st. So this is just a copy of what they're gonna ask us about. And it's really just a lot of like, check the box that applies here, like, which groups of students have been most impacted by COVID-19 in your district? And then, students from low-income families, and you just check all the ones that apply. Students of color, English language learners, children with disabilities, they have like a whole list there. So we'll just go through that. And then we'll get our policy or our plan up onto our website between August, the beginning of August, and then it'll be up there through our board meeting. And then one of the requirements of the law also is that there has to be public has to have a chance to give input. So if we have it at a public board meeting, the community can voice any concerns or ask any questions during the meeting. So like if Mr. Roby had a question about it, they could ask us about it next in the August meeting. And that would be the public part of the requirement. So, and then I just linked the Return to Learn PowerPoint from last school year also. And then as part of the requirements on the DE's website, we will have to link like a link to our website and a link to our board meeting when we had the public input.
So you're just using the same PowerPoint, all the same
Yeah, the
information,
same.
because I did notice the date needs to be changed.
Okay.
The year, at the on the final thoughts,
Okay.
says December 31st, 2020.
A general question really has nothing to do with the return to learning. Reading through the ESSER page and the legislative priorities, are they kind of admitting that last year the school, if you missed out of school, that there is maybe a learning gap now? That kind of
Well, they're calling it lost learning.
lost learning.
Or no, unfinished learning is what I was calling it, unfinished learning. So I mean, yeah, there's no way there wouldn't be. I mean, we all did the best we could, but it's not like having kids in the building every day.
I was just thinking of, like one school that was out of school for how long, and if maybe they're acknowledging that, maybe there's a gap between that, the schools, different schools that handle things differently. I was just kind of curious on what their thoughts are on.
Yeah, and in that ESSER 3, I think it's 20% of the funding we have to attribute to how do we
Learning
address that,
Yeah.
the learning loss, did
So
we
like
buy more
we're gonna use,
programs or-
we
yeah.
bought some curriculum, we're having summer school this summer, we're hiring a counselor. So those things are like 20% of that money has to be spent on things to address learning loss. So, yes, we'll have to put that into the report of like, what are the things that we've done to help address it? Like I'm helping Jason supervise summer school this week. And so we've got 2 classrooms that have kiddos in them, and they come 2 weeks, it's Monday through Thursday from 9 to 11, and it's been 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, and then 2 weeks in August. And I mean, they're doing some robust things in there. There's like a teacher and a para, and I think they live in both classrooms.
Mhm.
And they're trying their best to patch some holes, but I mean, it'll take way more than 6 weeks of summer school to patch some holes, but at least it's helping to start to patch some holes.
But I feel like we're further along than the Des Moines of the world because we were more in school.
We're in the know.
Other questions or comments on our return to learn plan? Do we have a motion to approve the return to learn plan as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved to approve our return to learn plan as presented. Doesn't look like we have any open enrollment this month. No personnel. Move down to facilities, grounds, and transportation.
So I've got a couple different things there. So the first one is our multi-purpose building. So we have, 3 bids. We've already approved the bid from Skyline Builders. And they're supposed to be starting soon. August, September is the timeframe for that. And then, we had a bid from, I don't know if we call it the dads or, yeah. But their bid was for when we were gonna remodel the old building. And they've had some concern about it being a new building, and they've got some concern that there could be different things that need to happen. So Pam is working with them to get another bid from the dads on like what would their bid be to do the inside of the new building rather than having to, reconstruct an old building. And then she's also got feelers out to 2 other people, because if we're gonna kind of redo that part separately, we want to have 3 bids for, I'm calling it the outside of the building and the inside of the building. So we've got the dad's bid for the inside of the building, and then she's got 2 other people she's working with to get the other bids for the inside. So at the moment right now, we'll get it up, and then we'll just wait till probably next month to move forward with the bids for or if we get them, if we need to call an emergency meeting or something, that I doubt between now and August we'll get to the point of needing an emergency meeting.
Do they have a timeline how long they said it would to do the outside for Skyline? That was in the bid.
Once they get, it'll be done in a week.
They're pretty
Yeah.
quick when they put them up.
So, but they're talking like late August or September was kind of, Pam said yesterday when I talked to her that I think they've got the buses moved, so that concrete area is wide open now, and Joe Mast, which he's the owner of Skyline Buildings, was gonna come up either today or tomorrow or Friday and mark out on the concrete where we need to cut it out. So we get that done. I saw Mike Schur here working out in the parking lot today, so I stopped and talked to him, and he said that they had a project over in Grinnell like for a couple weeks, but he said after that's done, they'll be able to get back here and to saw that cement and then break it out and that. So I guess my recommendation at this point is to get that done and get the shell up, because we're gonna have some expense with Mid-State taking the cement out, and then they're gonna have to re-pour that once the building's built. And then at that point, we'll kind of know how much money we have left in our budget to go, and maybe we can contract out some of it, or if the dads or whatever come in with a lower bid, because I think basically once the shell's up, it'll be insulated and lined inside, so we'll basically have heating and cooling, or probably just heating to begin with, which when they were gonna redo that other building, they were just looking at like a tube heater or a couple tube heaters, so that would work in this building. Pretty minimal electric as far as, you need lights and a few outlets, but nothing major that way. And then probably the biggest thing is some kind of a flooring, because I think in that other building, they were gonna put like some kind of like a wood floor over top of the concrete, which this will need it too, so. That cement out there isn't perfectly level. So I think those are the 3 big things that, but I guess I'd like to get it up and get the cement done. And I guess the other thing is the electrical service is gonna have to be redone a little bit. And Pam was talking to Von Mannen on that, because where it enters the bus barn now will interfere with the roof on that new building. So we're gonna have to either put it on the new building and then feed the bus barn off of it, or go higher. And so she was getting a bid on that for that. So that's an expense that's going to come in too. So I guess that, to me, it's like, I'd like to get the shell up. That other stuff can go fairly fast, I would think, I guess if push comes to shove and we don't have enough money, at least we got the shell there, and then fundraiser, put it in the budget for next year to finish it or whatever, so. Anybody else's thoughts on that? That okay, or?
Hopefully it's ready for wrestling, that's our goal. right?
That's right, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody okay with?
Yeah.
For kind of proceeding ahead like that, so. Just wait for some bids to come in, but get the building up and then see where we're at money wise, what we have left versus what we budgeted, so. Okay, and then the next is the office remodel project.
Yeah, so we did get 3 bids, and a Story's bid is in 2 parts. One was like for just the office, and then the other was like for just one of the classrooms. So theirs, you'd have to add the 2 bids together to get the same, like apples to apples bid from Heartland and Shepley. And so I'm recommending that we go with the Heartland construction company bid because it was quite a bit less. And they can have it done, they said, before school starts. Whereas Jeff just was very hesitant to even place a bid because he just doesn't have time to get it done before school, so he could have to do it later down the road.
Yeah, apples to apples, I'm not seeing apples to apples.
Yeah, it's not exactly apples to apples. So, John and I visited yesterday with Pam about that as well. Stories was a fabulous idea. I mean, it would be beautiful, but it's probably more than what we really need and what we really can afford to spend right now. But whereas Heartland's sketch of what they could do, it would absolutely meet our needs. It will still look nice, but it won't be quite as involved as Stories bid was. And so the only extra expense we'll have it with all of them, is we need to add in phones to the classrooms. And then Pam is checking because the fire alarm things, when you divide the class, like if we were to divide this room in half, we need to have fire alarms on both sides. So there'll be a little more expense. But they made it sound like it was pretty minimal. You could, I think, like tee the connection and then just kind of run a wire over to the other side. But you know, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, but that's the way they kind of described it to us. But this Heartland company, it sounds like they can get started right away, and they have actually employees that live in Baxter. So I sounded like they would maybe even use that Baxter crew to do the Baxter job.
And this, again, remind me, it's the, is it Mrs. Ford's room or where?
Yeah, so what it is actually kind of three spaces. So Mrs. Damon's office will just stay as is in this Heartland one, because it's just, this other plan can work without having to modify that space, so it just helps save money. So what we'll do is we're gonna take Jason's current office and they're gonna divide that into 2 spaces. So Jason's office will stay there, and then the other half will become the counselor's office. And then Mrs. Ford's current room is gonna get divided into 2 spaces as well. And Mr. Hasselbrink will be in 1 space, and then someone else will be on the other side. And then on the other side, where Mrs. Russell and Mrs. Bartholomew are right now, and I think Heartland uses it sometimes with their speech and language person, I believe that's who used it. Their room, they just have like divider, they decided a wall, it's just kind of partitions.
Yeah.
So they're gonna put a wall in there and make that into 2 classrooms. So Mrs. Bartholomew will have 1/2, and then Mrs. Russell will have the other half. So it really will meet all the needs, because those, like Mrs. Bartholomew and Mrs. Russell both have smaller class sizes, you know, at one time, they don't have a whole class, so they don't need, there was just more space than what they needed. And then Mr. Hasselbrink, you know, he really just needs an office, but they're gonna make it big enough that there's room for a table, so they can do some, maybe be like wing groups in there if they need it, or if he needs to meet with teachers, they can like spread their data out and have tables. So it really does meet our needs sufficiently.
Yeah.
So.
Those two rooms are gonna be split or kind of, they're gonna be split basically the same as that computer lab, that, how that was done. So there'll still just be one
One
door to
hallway
the
door,
hallway,
yeah.
but you go in that first room and then there's a doorway into the second room.
That was kind of what I was
Yeah,
wondering, is how the door was
yeah.
worked out. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was quite a bit cheaper as well. And then when Mr. Aker and I and the contractors and Pam walked through, we talked about that, like, if you think about the schedule, there's probably not that many times that, you know, Mrs. Russell's group will be interfering with Mrs. Bartholomew's group and vice versa. And then with Mr. Hasselbrink, you know, if there's a WIN group, if he's having a meeting or whatever, and a WIN group's coming in and out, or if Mrs. Ford is, I'm not exactly, I don't want to say who's going where exactly, because I'm not sure if Mrs. Ford is staying in that space, and then WIN is moving, or if Mrs. Ford is moving. I just don't recall how Mr. Aker and Mr. Luther left that, but the spaces, either way, the spaces will be the same. So it shouldn't interfere with like kids getting distracted by someone walking in, you know. So.
and then Mr. Aker said they will cut a new doorway into the hallway
Yeah.
for his office.
So they can see where that may
Yep.
need a little more.
Any other questions or discussion on that?
Thank you.
I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but I just want to be sure that everyone understands that this will put us really tight in the Pebble and the SAFE funds for probably the next, I'm going to say 2 years. So we'll, you know, summer projects for next year probably will be pretty minimal other than what our norms are. But I don't anticipate, I can't think of any large projects by the time we get close to these being done, so.
And we kind of did the math on it, we're like, are we good, not good?
We'll be good, we just have to watch our P's or, you know.
We just won't have like lots of extra money to. But it's important, like, it is important work to do this stuff. We need to get Mr. Aker and Mr. Hasselbrink out of the same
Separate
office.
offices.
For sure.
Yeah, I think having the counselor have her own,
Yeah.
not a
Not a
positive space
right,
will be
right.
a huge.
That'd be so much
Win.
nicer for him as well.
And that'll be for the full-time this
Yeah.
office? Okay. Where will the
And then the
halftime
halftime one will be where, I believe it's all shifted around
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
times, but I believe it's gonna be where, Mrs. Horton was, kind of down by the lunchroom.
Gotcha.
That space.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, somebody like to make a motion to approve the low bid of Heartland for the remodel of 2 classrooms and 1 office area. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved to accept the bid of Heartland for remodel. Okay, the next item is superintendent's report.
All right, we'll try to keep this sort of short and sweet. Like, it's skip number 1 because we already talked about that ESSER plan. So like I said, we'll have that for public comment at the next board meeting. The 2 churches, or the Unity, UCC Church and Bethany Church, are going to use our bus for Bible school. I think that's something they've done for years here. And Kevin Granby has volunteered to drive for it. We've been doing a lot of planning for next fall's PD. Dr. Anderson is just, I can't say enough positive about her. She's just, or not, I can call her Anderson, it's Erickson, Dr. Erickson. No, it's Anderson.
It's Eric.
Eric, yeah, so Anderson, Dr. Anderson.
You're
It's
just
like,
putting
I do
together
mix it up
this
every time. Wendy Anderson is wonderful, and she has just been, you know, really pushing our thinking and helping us really get moving forward. We're just so ready to just go. We're tired of just treading water, so we are just really excited about that. So we've got some exciting plans for coming back this
fall. What area, I mean, what is she gonna?
So she's been meeting with the district leadership team, and so we've been working a ton on our vision and mission and core values. So we met in June, then we met again in July, and then we're gonna meet again in August and work on that. And then she has been she's really digging into our data. And so actually I'm excited because I'm meeting with her tomorrow and a data specialist from Hartford. And I don't know what they're gonna talk about with me, but I'm excited to see what she has planned because she wants to help look at our data and then use that to decide, okay, what PD do we need? You know, looking at our data, we've realized like one of our subgroups, our special education students are just performing far below where other kids are on some of the tests. And we're like, we can't have this. And so one of the things that we've looked at, this was even before Wendy, but Wendy's now helping to support the work, is some of our PD, when we come back, like those first couple days back, is all about the general ed teacher's responsibility with special ed students. Because all these kids, if your child has an IEP, doesn't have an IEP, all kids are general ed kids first. So they're everyone's responsibility to make sure we are moving the needle. The special ed, like schools can't do it alone, special ed teachers can't do it alone either. So we're focusing on what do we need to do, what classroom, you know, procedures, what you know, standards do we need to be focusing on to help move all kids, but especially start really closing that gap with our special ed kids. So she's just helping with some of that to organize our thinking, and she asks really good questions. And so we're really excited about that. And then another thing we're gonna do at back to school time, we're gonna, I'm just gonna talk about it. We're gonna do a back to school night that's, we're gonna call it like a neighborhood block party. So it's gonna be on the first night of school. So it's gonna be from 6 to 7:30, and the boosters are helping, and the PTA or PTO, I think, I've visited with Travis about it, and we're just really trying to celebrate that we're back. And we want the community to understand it's open to the public. We want community members to come in. The school's going to be all shined up and ready, and we can finally have people in here and they can see our beautiful new school that nobody got to see last year. So we're really excited about that, and so we want to make sure that we get the word out. Like I put it in our newsletter article, and I was just on with Heartland today trying to figure out how to get some banners made that are like, come to our block party, and you know, so kids can come show their moms and dads or their families their classroom and meet their teacher. And then you know, community members, even if you don't have kids here, you just want to come see the new school, can come. There's going to be a free will offering dinner. It's like the junior class is hosting that. So we're just trying to really celebrate that the community spirit, and just that I feel like we've turned a corner and we're ready to just celebrate being Baxter. So we're really trying to start our school year off on a positive note. We're gonna have a guest speaker on the first day back for all staff. And so we just really want to move on from where we've been. So we're super excited about that. The parking update. Mr. Luther, Mr. Aker, me, Josh Meckley, Pam, and Deb all met last week, I believe, and talked about parking. So Josh took our ideas to the city council meeting, and they sound pretty positive. So then now today, Deb is working on taking pictures and like actually drawing up what we talked about. But one of the things that we've talked about was making the street out here one way that way during the school day, and parent drop-off is going to be over here, like where the old bus pickup was like a long time ago. That's going to be parent drop-off. The bus lane is going to stay bus lane, and then the high school kids will be over here, and then there's going to be I believe it's like 7 parking spots for preschool parent only, because sometimes we're pulling into the bus lane because they have to take their little kiddos in, but then it like blocks the bus lane, so that didn't work. So we're going to have the preschool parking over on the
Kind of where the
drop-off zone is now. So we'll have that, you know, like 10-minute parking or whatever. They can pull in and then bring their kiddo in, and then they can leave. And so it'll be one way that way just during the school day. And then we'll have like a drop zone for parents to just pull in, and so the kids will get out and then be, right there by the sidewalk, and then parents will leave. And we'll have like a drop lane and a driving lane. So, the city was supportive as far as Josh can tell. We're just trying to, we know it's kind of a disaster, and we get complaints all the time about how crazy it is over there. And so we also are closing the parking at the ag shop. So there won't be high school kids, coming down that street because they'll all have to park over on the high school side. So we really think it'll help with the just congestion of it all.
So will there be still a driveway in by the ag building?
Yeah, because the buses, I think, come
sure.
through that way, but the kids won't be allowed to park there.
Yeah, there was a time when they weren't allowed to park on this side of the school at all. They had to go over there. Well, then, we kind of got to the point where we were starting to build and, parking was a hot commodity anyway.
Yeah.
And so we let them park over here, and then it just sort of got to be a norm.
So we're just kind of working on that parking.
And plus, we've moved
The move
the
the
fuel
gas
barrels
tanks.
down the hill now from the
Yeah.
new building, so you can't really, block, if kids park there, block access to those.
What's the plan to make it a one-way, besides just communicating it to
Yeah,
one-way?
so we're gonna get some signs. We have to have the city council officially
Sure.
approve it. I think their meeting's like August 7th, 9th, I don't remember the exact date, but it's the beginning of August. And then Deb and I were actually just today looking at a catalog that has signs, and there's both things you can put out on the road. And those especially first couple of weeks when we're trying to get this going, it's gonna just be manpower, people standing out there like directing traffic. This is one way, and the signs that say, do not enter, one way, and just really directing the flow of traffic. And then once people understand the flow, we assume they'll figure it out. But yeah, we are ordering some signs, and then Pam's team will just roll them out every day and then roll them back at the end of the day. Like they do that now with the stop sign and the crosswalk and stuff. So just signage is really the best we can do.
Even if they could have a police officer there, maybe for that.
Yeah, and we talked about that as well, and we talked about that with Josh. Hopefully we can get some police presence here just to help those first couple days, first couple weeks. So yeah, they know that we are requesting that as well.
So it'll be in the newsletter?
Yeah, well, I think actually we're probably gonna work on making a video too. Once,
Okay.
Jason and Rob are gone this week, and then I'm gone next week, so we'll probably have to make our actual video like the first week of August, but get it on the website, get it in the newsletter. Well, the newsletter's already out, or already
Kind of have to wait
sent.
until it's approved by
Yeah, we
the
have to wait
city
for-
anyway.
yeah.
So they may have to go through like 2 readings of that.
Yeah, I don't know how, I think it is a little bigger deal.
Yeah.
So will that even be possible for?
Gosh, seemed like it would.
Well, they have two in a week, then a
Yeah, I
month,
think they're
right?
down to
Yeah.
one.
Oh, are they
I
back
think
to
they
one?
went back to one.
Just whatever. Fingers crossed. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I talked about back to school night. Okay, so just really the last thing, I'll talk about really quick, the administrative retreat. I'm also really excited about this. I met with the chief of Heartland AEA and then Dr. Valenja, and they're gonna do a leadership retreat for Mr. Luther, Mr. Aker, and I. And we're gonna go through some of the new standards, and we're gonna write some goals. And then one of the things that we talked about is that when we get our goals written, our own personal goals, and how the 3 of us are gonna help support, our district's goals, that's something we'll bring to you guys, and then you can hold us accountable, ask us how's it going? Every month or so, we'll just have that as a communication with the board and with the administrative team, just to help support our leadership, and then you supporting us working on these things. So, depending on what goals we write, my role in it will obviously be different than Mr. Aker and Mr. Luther's roles in it, but how do our 3 positions work together to help move us forward? So I'm really excited about really just kind of not only having the teachers and their learning, but as the administrative team, it's time for us to start moving forward as well, not just surviving. We're ready to move forward and learn. So I'm really excited about that. So that's at the beginning of August. We're gonna do that. And then the only other thing is this legislative priorities.
Before you start that, do you want to approve the bus for the
Oh,
vacation Bible
do you have
school?
to approve that? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that, yeah.
we have a motion to approve the use of a bus for vacation Bible school for the two churches?
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second? All in favor, aye. Those same sign. Motion's approved. Okay, legislative priorities.
We typically pick 4 or 5.
They used to number them, now they.
I know, I have a hard
No.
time getting through this, because it used to have better structure in this
Yeah.
document, I feel like, but anyway.
Or whatever's most important to you. I mean, if you want to go with 10, you can.
I just have to submit them
I
sort of.
started trying to catch it.
They're all-
Less is more.
Yeah.
That's right. You probably have, pillow drains off all those.
Right.
Probably not gonna happen.
I think mental health needs to be.
Well, I think it was on page 18, if that helps.
Okay.
I mean, I think that.
Yeah, it is on 18.
There's one about, the very last page has a COVID-19 remediation, which I thought was important.
Public health. COVID remediation, at least for this year.
So
It's
read
achievement
it
gaps,
off the title, would you?
COVID-19 remediation.
It's the very last one.
Supports additional resources to school districts and AEAs to identify achievement gaps among students.
Scrolling down through, I guess, the first one I saw through on the list was the school choice one. I had to look on this deal now since they passed it already, but using public tax dollars to support private schools with zero accountability. I think they missed the bus on that one. School safety, this wasn't necessarily on the list of their examples, but, we've talked about that SRO, back when Chief Hicks was here. I thought it would be nice if they could support small towns,
Right.
cities, school partnership with, more with, SRO schools.
That get us up to?
That's 4. There's one about sharing and reorganization, and I just wondered if that's something we, just because we are sharing so many things.
Keep the.
Yeah, sharing, operational sharing. Yeah, operational sharing.
It's a good one. Anybody else have any? Got 5 pretty good ones. Everybody okay with that? You want to read them back to us? Mike?
Okay, so I just jotted down, but mental health, COVID-19 remediation, opposed school choice, school safety, and operational sharing.
Suppose school choice, it's the private.
Public versus private.
Yeah.
Public tax dollars.
No account, I'll just put.
Yeah. Don't wanna go down that road.
Yeah.
No problem with school choice, it's
Yeah.
just how they decide to fund it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, everybody okay with those?
All right, that's really about all I got for you.
Before school starts?
Yeah,
It's
just-
a couple days before,
Okay.
so it's the Wednesday before school starts.
Isn't that
I'm
nice?
losing track of, yeah, we're like a month away from school starting. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm out of town that week. Is that a problem?
No.
Okay.
You can
Either
either
Zoom
Zoom
or
or
you
to
can-
Zoom.
I'm not sure I'll be able to.
Yeah,
Either
that's
way.
okay, we can just note you as.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Dr. Pay.
Yeah, it's
It's gonna be a
on
tough one.
You're gonna have to make that up for another month of service at the end of
It's like the
term.
second time it's been ever.
That's for sure.
Everybody does, I mean, that's one thing this board, and I think Kurt always preached that, you know, if you're gonna be on the board, you need to take the time to be there, so that's one thing I'm really proud of, all of our board members, we do a really good job of turning out, so.
That's not throwing shade.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's not, yeah.
It's just
Second time in 10 years
that,
that,
that was
man,
on
I'm
the side note.
disappointed.
I think, yeah.
20 meetings, that's not bad.
Anybody else have anything? I'll accept a motion to adjourn the meeting. A motion, do we have a second? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting's adjourned.